Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. And trying to enjoy this Juneteenth holiday. I know the people are out at the restaurants. I mean, I was out earlier here getting something to eat for lunch, and it was pretty packed out there. And when I was out there, there was a town cop passes me on the road, because they had the lights going, so everybody pulls over, and he went by, and then it occurred to me, just watching the police car going by, I was thinking of all the friggin' car chases that I've seen on the news, or like on cops and stuff like that, and how the cops will just go on chasing and chasing, and then I think about, some of the chases that you can watch live at home from the helicopters that follow these chases, and it came to mind. I was thinking, we have the technology here to make this, what I'm going to tell you, happen here. Okay, there's no excuse for this not being a reality, but we have the technology where we could actually give the police an electronic ability to be able to shut down a car engine, okay, on a whim. Okay, if the person tries to flee, they jump in the car, get close enough to it, press a button, and zap, engine just dies. Okay, and they got no choice but to stop. We could do that today. We really could. I mean, consider all the things that we can do with technology today. And even the police, they have non-lethal ways to subdue a person, the taser, when they got, spray or whatever the hell. We don't have to shoot somebody dead on sight, okay? And yet the police chase thing is still a thing we still do after all these years, decades, okay, even. I mean, we still chase people on the fucking streets. Now, I've seen a lot of chases, that show up in the national news or something where the person they're chasing crashes, into a building or another vehicle, or runs over somebody, okay, or they wipe out and the person they're chasing dies in it. And I'm thinking, there's got to be a better way to stop shit like that from happening. Some of these chases can go on and on for hours even. I saw one where a chase began, it was daylight, and by the time they got the bastard, it was like dark. So it's like, this is ridiculous. They got to have a better way to do this shit for cops, and they could. They could if somebody cared to actually create this device for police officers to use. And once they'd have it, they'd be all smiles, because then they wouldn't have to be risking life and limb, chasing somebody, and risking other people's life and limb. Okay, at the same time, they'd be able to get this person, and then that would be a foot chase, okay? And that's preferable to, a 2-ton car or a van or whatever, plowing into whatever's in the way to get away from the cop, okay? And I just, I brought this up one time on the internet, in the chat room, and I got so much fucking negative feedback from that idea. People saying, oh, the cops would have the ability to do that. It's like, well, look, you guys didn't seem to care about a taser being given to the cops because that would conceivably, reduce the number of fatalities involved in a gun shooting, okay? You can stop somebody with a taser, okay? And you people get pissed off when the cops, hurts an innocent bystander or something like that. So you're on the side of saving lives, apparently, because you make this argument. Well, police chases can take lives, and they have. And if you're so pro saving life, you would be behind this idea, along with everybody else. I think this is something that would unify us here on something. But to sit there and complain that, cops would be able to shut... Hey, a cop could take out a gun and shoot you if he wanted to, okay? Why do people feel like they have to have the right to run from the police if they're being, chased? If they've done something wrong, okay, and they're running, it's their fault, right? They should be stopped. But why would a cop chase you if you haven't done anything wrong? I mean, I just don't understand where people's thinking is coming from on that. My thinking is we could save lives. We could serve our public better as police officers could do their job better if they had the ability to stop a lot of these chases. Because from what I see, you got property damage, you got lives lost, injured, and you can even lose cops. And who wouldn't be against that? I mean, you have to be a fucking nut not to be for having that ability for a cop to do this sort of thing. But anyway, I'm digressing here from what the video is going to be about today. The iHip girls have a video here that I want to play for you, and Trump is really caught here in the middle between MAGA's warring factions. One side wants the United States to get involved in this fucking war over there. The other side doesn't. So let's listen to what they have to say about that, and we'll come back and discuss.
Most incompetent United States president we've ever had is sitting around looking at war plans, and the mainstream media narrative assumes that he's capable of doing this. They don't mention that this man's default setting is criminality, that his gut reaction to everything is not how does this benefit my country, it's how does it benefit me personally. And so Pumps is going to share some of the headlines with us. Pumps?
Okay, so now we have Trump considering going to war and supporting Israel. Here we go. BBC News says Trump considers joining Israel on Iran strikes as IDF targets nuclear sites. I agree with you completely, Jennifer. This man is not competent to tie his own shoes. Anytime he speaks, he sounds slurring. He makes no sense. And this is the person that has the capability of making the decision. It is absolutely stunning how ridiculous he is. And now we have Iran coming back to Trump and saying this. Iran's leader threatens irreparable harm if U.S. joins military action after U.S. president calls for unconditional surrender. And might I just add that the unconditional surrender was called on his lie Truth Social platform, diplomacy via social media, a failing social media company. This is absolutely stunning that he is so ridiculous. Total surrender on social media, like that's diplomacy.
What I think is missing in every narrative that I see in the mainstream media, where it's the BBC or any sort of corporate media, is Benjamin Netanyahu is not a credible messenger. And he went ahead, he has had ambitions to bomb Iran for 30 years. The reason, if they have enriched uranium, but I haven't seen the evidence of that, and I'm old enough to remember when the United States of America was the propagandist, when Colin Powell went to the United Nations and lied to the entire world about all of these WMDs, we get into Iraq and surprise, surprise, there are none. So call me a skepticist, because I think Benjamin Netanyahu has had these ambitions for 30 years. And he is a total war hawk. And what's happening right now is Trump has run on this America first. Trump's on the record for 30 years through all the crazy stuff he's done back before he even entered in 2016, talking about how insane American foreign policy is in the Middle East and how much it adds to the deficit. So I am like, put up or shut up with when it regards the United States of America getting involved, because here's the thing. I don't think they were 3 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. Benjamin Netanyahu saw an opportunity with a very weak president of the United States, and everybody needs to be on the lookout for a false flag attack that will try to get the American public involved in another war in the Middle East. And I just want to say this. Benjamin Netanyahu has been an absolute butcher to the Palestinians. What he has done over there is horrific. And the fact that the United States of America would believe a man that is the number one killer of children in this world right now, Benjamin Netanyahu, and we're going to take his word for it. And, again, then we have to go back to the person who is receiving this information based on the footage I've seen over the last year or two. This is the guy who tried to give a microphone a blowjob while he was campaigning. So this guy is, 3 sheets to the wind at all times. And I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about that's just as normal. I wake up this screwed up.
Well, interestingly enough, do you know who agrees with you about Iran not being 3 weeks away from the military, from having nuclear weapon? What? Tulsi Gabbard and the National Intelligence Agency. Now, of course, Trump wants her out. And then all this, they're trying to kill Trump. They're trying to assassinate Trump. It's like, number one, there's no evidence, as it appears to me from reading the reports, that U.S. intelligence can confirm that they're 3 weeks away. And so Trump throws in, and they're trying to kill me. But one thing, this is interesting, that's going to put Trump—
I want to stop you right there because I want to correct that. When it comes to Tulsi Gabbard, it also has to be pointed out that she does not have the United States of America's best interests at heart and hasn't for quite some time. She is a Russian propagandist. So whatever she says, I don't think she's a credible messenger either. And so the problem is what gets lost in this entire conversation is what is best for the United States of America. Donald Trump is looking out for himself and himself only. Tulsi Gabbard is looking out for Russia. Benjamin Netanyahu's looking to just destroy all of the Middle East as much as he can, as quick as he can, while the United States is this weak. So what gets lost in this entire conversation is American interests.
Absolutely. And that is the perfect segue to what I'm about to say next, which is Russia is telling Trump, do not go into this war. And then we've got Tulsi Gabbard, who's saying they're far from the nuclear weapons. So we've got an interesting trajectory because, in my opinion, Vladimir Putin is Trump's boss hog. Put up the headline. Global Eye News breaking: Russia issues warning to the United States the U.S. should not provide or even consider direct military assistance to Israel, calling it a dangerous escalation. So now we've got Benjamin Netanyahu that told him, oh my gosh, you're so great. Show us how strong your military is. And now you've got Putin, who's Trump's daddy, saying don't get into it. So he is in a catch-22 love triangle.
Right. And this is a president who, again, does not have the interests of the country or its citizens at his core thought process. Like, what is the best thing for the United States of America to do? What's the best thing for our citizenry? What's the best use of our taxpayer dollar? And he's surrounded by people who just want to make him happy. And then he's surrounded by a lot of nefarious actors, one of whom being Tulsi Gabbard. And then you've got like Pete Hegseth, who doesn't know, shit from Shinola. And so this is a really, really dangerous thing. And the people who are playing 5D chess right here are Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin. And nobody is standing up for America's interests right now. And the thought of us getting involved in another long, drawn out war in the Middle East based on propaganda is just a little bit more than I think the American public can stomach. And I hope that bad actors don't have some sort of attack on one of our bases to try to lure us into this. Because if it escalates, it's going to escalate to a scale that you're going to have China, Russia, a lot of other actors involved. And it's just a disaster and dangerous, and millions of lives will get lost.
I completely agree. And that's why I want to bring up Pete Hegseth. He would be the person in charge of the Department of Defense during this time. And he is an abject failure, incompetent. Let's watch his answers in response to very pointed questions in the U.S. Senate. We'll start with Senator Rosen.
You discussed General Hawk's dismissal with Laura Loomer prior to his removal.
I don't discuss who I talk about anything with, but ultimately this is my decision, and he serves at the pleasure of the president, and that's why he's no longer there.
So do you believe it's appropriate for any social media personality to influence personnel decisions in your department? Yes or no?
I believe your time is up, Senator.
Oh, it is not up to you to tell me when my time is up.
Well, the time
And I am going to say, Mr. Secretary, you're either feckless or complicit. You're not in control of your department. You're as unserious. It is shocking. You're not combating anti-Semitism within your ranks. It's a dangerous and pivotal time in our nation's history. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. And I don't appreciate the smirk, sir. You are the Secretary of Defense.
Good.
Okay, I just want to point out that the fever pitch that Laura Loomer is involved in political decisions made by the Trump administration has gotten so high that it's being talked about in the U.S. Senate. And Pete Hegseth, because he cannot answer that question, is rude to a U.S. senator. And I saw that and I thought, in my experience dealing with untreated alcoholics, that's exactly how they act.
Yeah, and this is also a lot of the way the entire Trump administration is normalizing thumbing your nose at accountability. She's sitting there trying to make him accountable. And even though that we had a two-party system, both parties full of a lot of shit, a lot arrived at these Senate hearings trying to be honest and accountable. This administration thumbs their nose at accountability. They think that they should do whatever they want, when they want, with impunity. And I just want to say one more thing about anti-Semitism. The Trump administration acting like they're trying to root out anti-Semitism is about as rich as it gets.
Laughable.
The white supremacist anti-Semitic flags, shirts, and messaging at January 6th was off the chart. Trump pardoned a man that wore a shirt that said Auschwitz on it. And they used a lot of imagery about, like, there's some acronym about possibly killing more than 6 million. And so what they're doing here is they're trying to say, look at these 18 and 19-year-olds at colleges that see injustice, that see a provocative country like Israel bombing the shit out of hospitals, schools, kids, women, just the general population, war crimes out the wazoo. And they see that injustice and they speak out against it. And Trump wants to attack higher education so that he can keep his population dumb, so they will succumb to his propaganda more. But nobody addresses all of the white supremacy on Twitter.
That's right.
Nobody addresses all of the white supremacy within the Trump administration. Nobody addresses, every time you go to a Trump rally, there appears to be a Nazi flag, Nazi imagery. So it's just bullshit. And this hypocrisy like that, it exists everywhere in the MAGA movement. On the one hand, we believe this, but on the other hand, we have a whole set of our actions that are diametrically opposed to this. And that type of duplicity is where democracy dies. And so I think it's good that the senators keep drawing these people out and browbeating them. But I don't know how much more is going to change until we get to the midterms. If we get to the midterms.
I agree with you. And the reason Trump and Elon Musk on Twitter don't go after white supremacy and the Trump administration doesn't is because they like it, because they are, in fact, white supremacists. One more clip I want to show you. I want to tell you that Senator Tammy Duckworth went all through Pete Hegseth. She was madder than a hornet. He's already $1 billion over budget. Like these people, Kristi Noem, over budget. Pete Hegseth over budget because they're incompetent. But the last clip that I want to leave everybody with is Elise Stefanik. And I think she makes such a great point. And of course, Pete Hegseth is the total dick that he.
Enjoy your pool or spa more this year. HTH makes maintenance a breeze.
Yes.
Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
It is based on Donald Trump giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I mean, except for the Bible from the man who has sexual abuse allegations out the zoo, a baby mama while he's married to somebody else. And here's the deal. I don't give a shit, but he is not the person.
Here's the thing. All of these people are rapture preppers. Their support of Israel is because they are Christian Zionists. This is what you grew up in this world. It is a part of the rapture. The Jews have got to be in their places so that Jesus can come down and say, pick a side, Jews. Are you going with us? And are you going to deny your faith? If not, well, then you're going to burn in hell forever. And so we have had decades-long American foreign policy based on an Iron Age magical book. It's insane, and nobody talks about this. Like the large majority of these right-wing evangelicals that are in the American government, their foreign policy is based on a fairy tale. That is staggering. And this doesn't even hardly hit the news.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, Pete Hegseth, I'm so happy the women in the Senate were all over him because he is incompetent. And as we look to Trump, corrupt, incompetent, making plans or decisions about going to war with Iran, and then this man being in charge of the military, it is extremely frightening. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back later with more news.
You know, it was very, very unsettling to hear Pete Hegseth answer Senator Elissa Slotkin's question about, you know, would you give the order to shoot unarmed civilians, you know, in a situation if the president asked you to, and he wouldn't. It was a yes or no question, but he couldn't even answer it. He had to give you that ridiculous Bible answer that he gave, okay, which was on the surface raised a lot more questions than it answered. But the idea that Hegseth, who really doesn't seem to know what the fuck he's doing with his job, okay, and she pointed that out to him. You know, he's been screwing up here all along since he started. That, you know, his oath of doing his job is not to the Constitution, but to the man in charge of the country. And as she said, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Because if your loyalty is to the man in charge, okay, then when he does something wrong, you're not going to turn against him. But if your loyalty is to the Constitution, when somebody breaks the Constitution, you know where you know that you have to act, you have to do something, okay? That's why, you know, when take an oath to the Constitution, that's what it is, okay? You don't put your faith in any one man. And of course, logically, in our form of government, our presidents come and go quickly. So it would kind of be stupid to pledge your oath to a man who's not going to be there maybe 4 or 8 years, okay, then you'll be another man or woman, okay, running the country. So it's easier to just pledge your oath and your faith to the Constitution itself, because everybody in the government has to abide by that. Basically, the Constitution is the President of the United States, okay? If you want to look at it in a technical point of view, yeah, our country is run by it, not by any one person. And the fact that Pete Hegseth cannot differentiate that in his head, and because he pledged a loyalty oath to Trump, it would seem, that if Trump asked him to tell the troops to shoot at civilians, armed or unarmed, okay, and he's got no problem with that, okay, that's a recipe for disaster, you know. And we've seen that happen in this country before, in the 1960s, okay, where the National Guard was sent in, and because they're not trained on how to police, you know, and none of the military really is trained to police. They're there to fight a war, okay? That's what our military is for, to fight wars, not to police countries. That's why every time we tried doing that, like in Vietnam and in Iraq, we ended up with body counts, big ones, okay? And we cannot police a country. But because Trump wants to take the military and do that, it's going to set up another disaster in this country, which, you know, Pete Hegseth is going to walk right into it, okay? Because he's not a person that really, what can I say? Not a man who would look back on history and allow it to decide things for him, you know, to learn from it, you know. So he's not that kind of a guy. He's, what can I say, less upwardly mobile, we'll just say, when it comes to that regard, which is unfortunate, because to be the head of an entire military that he is now, it requires a person to be able to look at the bigger picture here and to put it in context. All right, if he can't see that what Trump is doing is wrong, then clearly his way of scaling what's right and wrong is skewed, all right, which makes him a problem. And I think Senator Slotkin was trying to illustrate that by having him try to answer that question, just for everyone, not so much to hear from him, but for everybody else to hear his reply. She wanted to make a point, and he walked into it. Okay, she says this is just a yes or no question, okay? And she threw that at him just so everybody could see him squirm and try to do something besides answer that question. And that's what he did. So as disturbing as it was to hear his reply, which coming from him is a laughable thing, because this is not a guy that has any measure of principle or Christian faith or anything about him, okay? His own mother doesn't even like him, okay? So coming from him when he says, oh, don't believe everything you read except if it comes from the Bible, is laughable. Beyond, okay. He buried himself. He fucking buried himself in front of the country, in front of the world, with that answer. And I don't even think he even got it. I don't think he got it. I don't think Hegseth really got it. What he said was how troubling it was, because he's that shallow of a thinker. Okay. That's why he was able to get on that internet site, okay, and, you know, run his mouth about military plans, which, you know, he tried to backpedal as, oh, that wasn't classified or bullshit. Okay, it was classified, because every time they would ask anybody about it, nobody could talk about it, right? So if they can't talk about it, then it is considered classified even after the fact. So he lied there on that. And the fact that, you know, he is that kind of a person to do that sort of thing, like I said, goes right back to what I said originally, that he would follow that order. If Trump ordered him to tell the military to shoot to kill, he'd do it. He'd fucking do it. Without hesitation, he'd do it, because his loyalty is to Donald Trump, not to you and me and the Constitution. The military is supposed to be there for us, to protect us from invasions, okay? I mean, in a way, we've kind of used the military a lot in the wrong way in the past, but turning it against its citizens is absolutely the wrong thing to do. Okay, it's not allowed, and even some people in MAGA know this. All right, they may not say it, okay, to your face, but they also understand that too. And right now, that's why there's division in MAGA right now, is because, like I said, the last video, Trump was going around making everybody think I'm going to bring peace to all these conflicts. 24 hours, we're going to have peace in Ukraine. He was promising all kinds of shit. And now it seems like, no, we're going to actually have the opposite of that, because everybody is assuming, because they know Trump better than MAGA does, that we are going to end up supporting Israel against Iran. Okay, so we all have to understand that that's going to open up a bigger can of worms. I already said in the last video, or a previous one, that if Israel goes to war with Iran, they are going to bite off more than they can chew, and that's exactly what's happened. Yesterday, Iran hit Israel, Tel Aviv, there were all kinds of fucking missiles that they never thought that Iran had, and the accuracy of them was incredible. It's like, well, they've been allied with the Soviet Union, they've been allied with Russia for a long time. Who do you think gave them that ability to have missiles like that? Okay? Hello? That was one of the reasons why I was saying Iraq was a whole different animal. Iraq did not have a military to speak of. It was a pushover country. That's why Bush sent us in there, because it had cities and everything, and it would be a good video for everybody to see on the nightly news. The United States kicking the ass out of a poor little country, just to get everybody's revenge satisfied from 9/11, okay? When that country had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11, okay? Because if it was, we wouldn't have gone into Afghanistan, where Osama bin Laden was hiding. Okay, so anyway, that was a different kind of war. But look how long we had to stay over there even after we took out Saddam, okay? We were in there, and then we had to migrate over into Afghanistan and continue the fight there. And we were there for 20 years, okay? We didn't get out of there till Biden showed up, okay? And we got ourselves out of that mess. But here we are at the eve of doing the same fucking thing all over again. We're being told the same lie that Iran's got nukes, and they don't, okay? Iran has nukes, and they don't. Everybody has said that we've been keeping an eye on them. They're not. They have the ability to make nuclear power plants, but that's not the same thing as making a nuclear bomb. It takes a more enriched version of plutonium in order to make that, and they can't do it, okay? So they can make a nuclear plant, but we're being told the same bullshit story. And the thing is that what's happening now is that this version of the Iraq war is going to end up different, because these people can fight back with equal force. Even if the United States gets involved in this, you know what's going to happen then? They're going to have terrorist strikes happening in this country after that, because that's how they deal with an enemy across the ocean. They send terrorists. So expect another 9/11 kind of a disaster happening in our near future here when our country gets involved in this war, because they may not have the ability to send a missile all the way to the United States, okay? But they have the ability, and they probably already have them here now, of activating terrorist cells in this country to start doing their dirty work, okay? We don't realize that, okay? But it can happen. And, I feel like, Israel is going to drag us into a fucking war that we shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place. We shouldn't have been supporting Israel at all when they were out there kicking the shit out of out of the Gaza Strip, okay? We should have been trying to stop Netanyahu the way Joe Biden wanted to try to do. But Netanyahu, no. See, for decades he wanted to have war with Iran. He wanted to do regime change over there, okay? And look what it's going to cost him. He might lose his fucking regime in the process. He might lose his whole fucking country thanks to this fucking bullshit. The only way he's going to be able to stand up against Iran now is if the United States gets involved in this. Because, you know, right now as it stands, you know, Israel is getting its fucking ass kicked here. They're blocking media from showing anything going on over there. In fact, it was reported that the prisoners that they took from the Gaza Strip were cheering when they heard the bombs landing in Israel, and then they were disciplined for cheering. Okay. And the press are not allowed to take pictures or videos of what's happening on the ground there. Okay. Of course, try and stop the press. All right, they're gonna get their images out of there some way, but officially they're not allowed to do that. So if they're caught, they can be arrested. So this is Israel, my friend. This is like Nazi Germany inside Israel. Okay, these people have become the very thing that they despise most about what happened to them. They have become the enemy. They don't even see that. Okay, well, maybe some of them do, because there were people who didn't want Netanyahu to stay in charge of that country before all this shit started. Okay, and he's been keeping this fucking military fuel, this war going on, first with Gaza and then Lebanon and now Iran. He's been keeping all this shit going to distract everybody from wanting to see him removed as prime minister or whatever, okay, president of Israel. Which, you know, he broke laws. He's crooked just like Trump is. They didn't like him. But now they're into this war. They ain't got time to sit here and have a trial or anything like that, like they were gonna do. And so this son of a bitch gets to stay in power. Don't think that Trump hasn't noticed that. You know, he's liable to do the same fucking thing just to keep his ass in power if he sees the wind shifting against him. Okay? So that's why, you know, there's so many reasons why we're going to get into this fight with Iran, and we're going to regret it. Worse than we did with Iraq. It's going to actually hit us harder than it did them. And we're, you know, and I'm afraid that the anger level in this country is going to reach such a point that if anybody, you know, says they support Trump, they will be attacked. They will be assaulted. They will be beaten on the streets for that. Trump will have to surround himself in Washington, D.C. with the military because people will be openly trying to get to him. Okay? This is how bad it could get. We didn't see that in the Iraq war because we had the upper hand. As Trump said, we had all the cards. Okay? They couldn't throw anything at us to stop our military. So, in this case, we've already got India saying they stand with Iran. Pakistan, rather, I think. Yeah, Pakistan said they stand with Iran. You already got a country right there ready to stand against the United States. Russia just might pull in. I mean, I know right now they're busy with Ukraine, but that doesn't mean they can't help Iran by sending them weapons and shit like that any other way. Okay? So you're already looking at years of this fighting going on that's not going to end quick. And God only knows how much damage it's going to do to our military, how many lives we're going to lose in the process. Okay? I don't know. I was in the military. So, like I said, the military, the people in it are as diverse as they are in the civilian population. You got your hardliners, and you got whatever else in there. Okay, I know there's people in the military that despise Trump. Okay, as much as I do, because they understand. They understand what it is to be working for the government. They understand the oath they took. They understand these things, where some other people it went in one ear and out the other. Didn't mean a fucking thing. They just went through the motions just so they could get a uniform. But for some, it meant something, okay, to serve their country. And so you cannot say that every person, I mean, sure, they're going to follow their orders, okay? It takes courage to defy them when you know they're wrong. It does, okay? It takes a different kind of courage than putting your life on the line and shooting at somebody else, okay? It really does. There's different kinds of courage in life. And the military instills a lot of fear in its subordinates. not to disobey orders. But at the same time, they tell people, well, if you hear an order and it doesn't sound right, disobey it. You have a duty to disobey it. You know, so you get mixed signals given to the troops and stuff like that out there, because they need to have unity, but they don't want to have blind unity behind a sick leader. You see? So it's a very thin tightrope that everybody that's in the military has to walk. And it depends on the character of the individual. If that person was raised with good principles and morals, then they would know what to do. If not, it'd be easy just to follow the crowd. Okay? So I feel like we're going to see a lot of divisions deepen in this country even further than they are now. If this war, when this happens, where we get dragged into this. Okay? I can tell you this much: the hatred against Israel will just go through the fucking roof, because when our soldiers are dying and people start wondering, why are we over there dying for these people who created this mess in the first place, then you're going to see a lot of anti-Israel sentiment being stirred up in this country, and a lot of Jewish people are going to be targeted. Okay? So, like I said, we're not going to see an ease in anything. Okay? An escalation is imminent. It's going to happen. It's probably already happened as I'm sitting here yakking on this video. Okay? But it's going to happen. And when it does, things here at home are going to get bad. Things here at home are going to get bad. People aren't going to be thinking so much about the immigration methods. Okay? They're not going to be thinking about that. In fact, I think a lot of the military they got on the streets in LA are going to be recalled and sent over to Israel if they're going to need boots on the ground. So I'd hate to be in the military right now, these days. Okay? It's very fluid what's happening, and it's not good. It's not good. These people are going to be faced with questionable actions that's going to haunt them for the rest of their life, and that's the thing that I would never wish on anybody to have to carry. Anyway, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Stephen Miller designed it. Donald Trump demanded it. Kristi Noem and Holman ordered you to do it. Illegal deportations, mass raids, rounding up people who are here legally, arresting citizens, family separations, snatching students off the street for tweeting, detention without hearings, shipping them to foreign prisons, deportations defying court orders. When government agents like you abuse your power, when you trample civil and constitutional rights, you can be held personally liable in civil court. You can lose everything, and Trump can't pardon you. That includes ICE, that includes CBP, contractors, DOJ, even the White House. Yep, every last Trump official pulling the strings. Even, well, especially the lawyers. If you think you're safe behind badges and titles, you're wrong. You do a hard, dangerous job. You're vital to our security. But what they have you doing now isn't law enforcement. It's just lawless, and you'll pay the price for following illegal orders.
Never mix salt with these 2 ingredients if you don't want your hose to be rock hard tonight. Every time you see an older man with a young woman, you can bet he's using the salt trick. In fact, I've been left unable to walk for more than 4 days because of it. This talk about women only wanting money is just an excuse from guys who can't perform in bed. What women really care about is whether a man can heat things up in the bedroom and keep everything working. Having worked in the adult industry for many years, I discovered this after watching a video by Emily, a friend and former adult film star. In the video, Emily reveals that every man has a little hidden button on his body. When activated, it can make even 80-year-old men stand tall and be ready to handle any young woman for 2 straight hours. Dr. Jack Jordan scientifically proved this, and the method works so well that it makes your body stay rock solid whenever you want. All you need is the salt recipe in the morning with a bit of warm water. It takes less than 15 seconds. Fun fact, this recipe was banned for over 40 years because it threatened the sales of the famous little blue pill in pharmacies. After the video about salt featuring the ex-actress went viral, I can now share it here. Just click the link in the description or the pinned comment to access everything you need to make this recipe. Watch the video alone because it includes some very steamy practical demonstrations. Jack shows exactly how to do it and the results it delivers instantly. Everything you can imagine happens right in front of the cameras with nothing censored. So grab your headphones, click the link below, and get ready for content so hot it might even make you want to join in yourself.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back. This other video I have, it's the first time I'm putting this one up here. It's from World Affairs and Context, and they're talking, well, this lady here will be talking about the end of the dominance of the US dollar in the world, according to a lot of global exporters and things that's being said here. So let's go to that video here, and then we'll discuss that here on the other side.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. The dollar is losing its shine, not necessarily in headlines, but in contracts and in investments. And that's where power really shifts, you would agree. In this episode, we'll discuss why more exporters around the world are saying no thanks to the US dollar and how the loss of confidence affects the US currency. Today, we're going to break down something that's not really supposed to happen in times of crisis. A weak US dollar is unusual. You've probably heard it before. The dollar is the world's safe haven. We've heard it so many times over and over again, and it used to be true. The rock everyone runs to when the world gets shaky. And here's the thing now, after Israel's attack on Iran, the dollar barely moved. And that silence speaks volumes. So let's unpack what's happening and why this time might really be different. So in theory, when geopolitical stresses rise, such as wars, strikes, financial panic, the dollar strengthens. That used to be the case historically. That's what we would expect to see. However, now is different. It used to be the case because global investors usually rushed into US assets, such as treasury bonds, cash, and dollar-denominated investments. But this time, not so much. Right before Israel's strike on Iran, the US dollar index had already hit a 3-year low. And since then, well, it's only rebounded by about 0.5%, which is really negligible. Meanwhile, gold spiked, oil moderately increased as well. Markets definitely felt the risk, so it's not that fear wasn't in the air. It certainly was. It's just that the dollar quite literally didn't really get the call. So this year alone, the dollar has lost roughly 10% of its relative value against major currencies. We typically say against a basket of major currencies. But here's what's really unusual about the situation. This isn't, being driven by interest rates or money supply. The Fed hasn't dramatically changed course. Growth in the United States hasn't suddenly cratered compared to Europe or Asia. So what's really driving this dollar weakness? Well, it comes down to two things: America's budget deficit and political volatility, or I would probably say instability. The United States is borrowing aggressively, and not just during recessions. We're talking about large structural deficits from one administration to the next. And that puts pressure on inflation expectations, and it makes international investors nervous. They don't like this. Add to that an unpredictable political backdrop with tariff threats, fiscal crisis, severe economic and political uncertainty, and you've got a recipe for eroding confidence in the US dollar. Such instability hurts businesses and it hurts governments. So let's zoom in on the deficit for a moment, because this is very important. When governments borrow too much, especially in a growing economy, it sends a troubling signal. If markets believe debt levels are becoming unsustainable, they will demand higher yields because their risk increased. So they will demand higher risk, or they stop buying altogether because they think, well, if we're not getting paid more, we're not going to risk our money. And while the United States can print its own currency, that only works as long as the world believes in the United States. As long as the world believes that the US dollar is stable, trustworthy, and backed by sound fiscal policy, which I think you would agree we actually don't really have. So right now, those beliefs are being tested. It's not just about the numbers anymore, it's about confidence. And that's not something that central banks can manipulate easily. Now, combine this with rising geopolitical risks like Israel's war on Iran, and the picture gets even worse. A weaker dollar in a time of global uncertainty isn't just unusual. It should be extremely, extremely concerning, because if the world is no longer rushing into dollars during moments of crisis, that raises a fundamental question that all of our politicians should be asking right now and should be researching and trying to fix. The question is, what replaces the dollar? A declining dollar can ease US exports, but it also raises import prices. And for countries that borrow in dollars, what happens to them? Well, a weaker US dollar should be a relief to them, but only if they trust that it will stay that way. The dollar's recent weakness isn't the result of traditional economic forces. It's being driven by something harder to measure. It's been driven by confidence erosion. Maybe not panic, maybe not collapse, at least not yet, but definitely considerable hesitation. In a recent article, Bloomberg reports that when the head of currency sales at US Bancorp talks to importers into the United States, she's hearing a recurrent theme. Foreign suppliers don't want dollars anymore, believe it or not. Instead, they're asking to be paid in euros, they're asking to be paid in yuan and in pesos, in anything, even in Canadian dollars. And we're not talking about theoretical discussions. This is real-world business. American companies are starting to settle bills in foreign currencies because their suppliers from overseas are demanding it. Just a few years ago, you may recall, the dollar was treated like gold in trade deals, and this would have been unthinkable completely. But now, US Bancorp says the vibe is totally different. The message from overseas vendors is becoming, just give us our local currency and keep your dollars. That's effectively what Bloomberg is writing about. And of course, it is surprising to many who haven't been keeping up with the news lately. So what changed? Well, the dollar has been on a bit of a roller coaster. After surging 7% at the end of 2024, it dropped around 8% this year. And this is according to Bloomberg's index. That kind of volatility makes life and business extremely challenging for exporters. pricing becomes quite tricky. And in addition to that, earnings become unpredictable and businesses can't stand that. And nobody really wants to wake up to a contract that suddenly dropped 2%, that suddenly lost 2% of its profitability because of a currency swing, which is likely to happen if you continue to limit yourself to settling transactions in US dollars. So foreign suppliers are doing what makes sense in the emerging multi-currency world. They are protecting themselves. They want stable income, and that means being paid in their own currency, not in King Dollar, as it was once called. In interviews to Bloomberg, US exporters say it is difficult to quantify in real time, but across East Asia and Latin America, more and more exporters are requesting trade deals in local currencies or alternatives to the dollar. Even Citigroup has weighed in, saying that the US trade war may accelerate the shift, especially if new trade blocs emerge between countries in Asia and Latin America, and we know the BRICS is working on its expansion in Latin America. Let's not forget, from 1999 to 2019, nearly every export invoice in the Americas was dollar denominated. Dollar was indeed king. That's no longer the case. Europe, thanks to its intra-EU trade, already saw much lower dollar usage, which of course proved to be very beneficial for euro. So this isn't about the dollar vanishing overnight, don't get me wrong, it's about erosion, invoice by invoice, contract by contract, and erosion of trust in the US system as a whole. The dollar's role in trade is one of the foundations of its global dominance. When that role begins to erode, as we see now, even a little, it can ripple through the entire system, from US borrowing costs to reserve demand to geopolitical influence. At this time, the dollar is still the world's most used currency, but it is changing. If more exporters stop accepting it, or even just prefer alternatives and actually do request alternatives, that tells us something deeper. And this is a shift that is bound to be very bad for the United States in the long run. As US Bancorp puts it, the change in tone speaks to the dollar's reputation, and reputation, especially in global finance, is everything. Is this the beginning of the end for the dollar's trade dominance, or just a temporary response to recent volatility? We know that the structural shift in power also impacts the use of the dollar and its hegemony in the long run. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me. Remember to show your support, like, subscribe, and share. It goes a long way. It means a lot to me. I put so much work into my content. Also, support my work on Substack and Patreon. You will find those links in the description below. I look forward to seeing you in the comments, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye for now.
Okay, so, it's pretty wild how fast the confidence in our dollar has eroded in just, the last, few years. About 5 years ago, talking about other countries rejecting the dollar would be unheard of. It's just amazing. And I think, of course, and you can't really ignore that. The COVID epidemic really hit the world economy hard. So when Joe Biden was president, he worked hard to try to get our economy to rebound, which he did. And, and I would think as early as last year, confidence in the dollar remained. But when you started talking about Trump being the president again, that's when speculators and stuff started to get nervous, because they know Trump, they know what he's like, and we had a whole term of him as president to fall back on to learn from what this guy was going to do. And when he started talking tariffs, that really sent shockwaves around the world about the American economy. And so I think more recently the dollar value is just going down and is not being trusted. It's not going down significantly yet, but as I had just said in the previous segment, things are going to happen here. If the United States gets involved in this shit over in the Middle East, that could impact the dollar even more. Okay, so, you know, there's always economic fallout whenever there's a war. So, you know, the bully on the back is really no longer bullying the smaller, weaker kids, because they've grown up and spent that growth time working out and strengthening themselves, you know, to be strong, to fight back, and, you know, to throw harder punches, you know, basically by what I'm referring to as their economies and stuff. You know, the rest of the world is, you know, trying to find alternatives, you know what I'm saying, because they're losing their confidence in the United States. And by doing so, they're just, you know, this could be like the beginning of a whole new different economy, global economy, one that doesn't include us. The United States essentially would be, you know, standing alone, and our money wouldn't be able to buy much from other countries. As the rest of the world does work and trade around us, you know, because of what's happened here with just Trump and, you know, in the last few months, I mean, that's where the global economy is going to be, I think, is we're not going to be part of it. And what's that saying? It's always easier to destroy than it is to create. Well, it's easy to destroy America's standing in the global economy. It's going to be very hard to get it back, you know, to get our position back, because we're not going to be trusted as well as we were, because they see that, you know, that when we make promises, they're only as good as the man that's still in office. Once that person is gone, you know, all the promises made go out the door with them. And that's why I'm saying it's just, you know, I think the rest of the world is starting to see just how laughable it is to deal with the United States, because it's a two-faced, three-faced, you know, country that is not even sure what it wants to be. Even after all this 250 years, even after 250 years, we're still struggling with what kind of a country do we want. We had decided way back then we wanted a democracy, but apparently now we don't. Apparently half the country thinks we shouldn't be a democracy, but they can't tell you what they want it to be. They just know a democracy doesn't work. So it's like, well, why get rid of something? Okay, because it's not working to your liking. Why not just fix it? Okay, why not just work to fix it instead of working to tear it down? Because that's the way a lot of people in our government have been doing things. Instead of trying to fix what isn't working right, they would rather eliminate the whole thing altogether. Like, let's just take Social Security. That's been an issue that's been bandied about since the day it was created. Okay, and everybody's always saying there's never going to be enough money in that. Okay, and it's been around for decades. But they keep saying that. Well, if it's such a big fucking problem, instead of talking about getting rid of Social Security, why don't you talk about ways to fix it? Okay? And we know that Social Security has to have money in order to do its business, because they got to pay out. Okay? Of course, that money comes from the taxpayers, but that money will go back to the taxpayers when they hit retirement age. But, you know, they're trying to say there's not going to be enough money there because, you know, when the baby boomers all retire, it's a big generation. They're going to suck the Social Security system dry. Shouldn't. Not if they've been paying into it their whole life. That money should all be there for them too. Okay? Fewer people in the country, then fewer dollars in the Social Security. More people in the country, then there's more dollars in the Social Security. Don't you see what I'm saying? If the system was working as it should, there wouldn't be a problem. There wouldn't be any talk about a shortfall. We wouldn't, you know, talking about cutting back benefits. Okay? Think about that. It makes no sense. If you put $1 in your piggy bank, you're going to get $1 back when you want it, right? The piggy bank's not going to take that dollar and turn it into 50 cents unless somebody spent that dollar and put back 50 cents. Don't you think that's where the problem is? Is that people have been dipping into that Social Security and spending money that didn't belong to them? That's what I'm saying. Why get rid of the system? Just fix it. Put more safeguards. Put more rules around it so that way the only people getting that money back are those who've been paying into it. All right? That's all I'm saying. But you see, Republicans and, you know, the government in general, whenever it comes to doing something, you know, to create a helping hand or to simply fix a problem, they come at it with a sledgehammer. They trip and fall all over themselves to try to fix it. And that's kind of how I looked at the ACA, you know, the Affordable Care Act. That's the way I kind of looked at how that was handled. Everybody was all got ideas. People were against it. People were for it. Everybody was chipping away at it. I mean, it was a shit show. It was like Three Stooges on steroids. I mean, these people couldn't get that fucking thing passed the way Obama wanted it to be passed. And you know that the original idea of that thing would have worked 10 times better than it does today. But because the Republicans didn't want that to work, they made damn sure that there were things cut out of it and are added into it. Because, you know, they get donations from the for-profit system in our country here, okay? So, like I said, that's the way the government does things, okay? And that attitude hasn't changed, okay? And I feel like we really need to start expecting better people in our government to do the correct kind of work. And instead of picking these goddamn, what can I call them, characters, okay, they're people pretending to be politicians, actors, I guess, you know, like Trump. If we would stop picking folks like that to be sitting in our seats of power, I think things would run so much better in this country, don't you? I mean, honestly, you know, and also get the money out of the system. Stop with the bribes. Stop with the briefcases of money walking into the fucking Senate and the Congress every day. Okay, enough of that. Our government should be able to make its decisions on its own without having influence from other people. That's why we get all these people elected into power that don't seem to do anything, is because they're waiting for the right amount of money to cross their desk. Whether they stand or against something, okay, it depends on who gives them the highest bid. That's how they make their choices. That's why people get into politics today. Because if they were only getting paid what they're supposed to get paid to do their job, nobody would want to be into politics. Nobody would want to be a senator or a congressman. There's no money in it. Okay? So the only people left that would want to be in it are those who want to contribute something to this country to make it better. That's a good place to start when it comes to finding the right folks to vote for, right? That the people running are running because they want to do something for this country to make it better. Not because they expect a big glob of money in their hand, you know, once they get there, okay? That was the point of why Bernie Sanders was talking about getting rid of money in politics. Was he sees it with his own eyes, what's going on every day. Okay, he watches these people come in and out. He watches congressmen retire from being congressmen and they become lobbyists because, hey, they're still in the money. So, you know, he sees the problem every day. This guy sees it all. We can't imagine it because we don't work there. We're not on the ground looking at this thing. He is. So take his word for it when he tells you it's a problem. I mean, how many others are out there willing to say that? Not many, because they don't want to say anything because that gravy train could stop. All right? But Bernie comes out there and he tells people this, and he's never changed that message in all the fucking time he's been a senator. So you know he's right. You know he's right. He's been consistent all along. Now, I want to read this short little piece here from Dose of Democracy here, and it's talking about how this Trump supporter here is going to have himself a fight here on his hands from a Democrat challenger. He's a Republican in Congress. Lexi Daugherty for Congress. Almost as important as taking back control of Congress is kicking out the MAGA extremists that fill its halls, and Georgia Democrat Lexi Daugherty is intent on flipping the seat of one of the worst of the worst. She's taken on Representative Mike Collins, one of the most disgustingly racist Republicans in the House, who once called for migrants to be thrown to their deaths from helicopters and celebrated Ole Miss college students making money noises at a black protester as, quote, taking care of business, unquote, as if that wasn't bad enough. He's one of Elon Musk's most loyal sycophants on the Hill and celebrated cuts to Social Security by calling on our seniors to, quote, get back to work, unquote. He's even called for U.S. citizens to be deported for simply asking Trump to show compassion. He's the lowest of the low, and our nation deserves better. Yeah. These are the folks I'm talking about that only showed up to be politicians because there was money in it for them. That's what this guy's about. He's in it for the money. He's not in it for you. Okay? He's bringing his bad attitude, his lopsided ethics, you know, his flaws into the political stream where any other person never would bother, because it wouldn't suit them. But if there's a big dollar bill attached to it, you know, he's going to join that fucking thing and suck it dry for all he can get it. Okay? So will he fight there to hold this? You bet your ass he will, if he's getting a lot of money here. But see, that makes it all the more reason why he should leave, why he should be voted out, is because he's only there for that money. The fact that he wants to put up such a fight and he doesn't have any fucking plan on things he wants to do to make things better, that's pretty obvious. You know, a blind man could see it. You know, it's ridiculous that this country will sit here and say things, you know, like Democrats don't have a plan or anything like that, when you've heard zero from the other side. You've heard nothing. Even during Trump's campaign last year, he made a lot of promises, which he hasn't kept. Okay, so what do you think is better? And then here's this other part where it says, the U.S. troops deployed to Los Angeles have accomplished exactly one thing. Nearly 5,000 federal troops have been deployed to Los Angeles on the orders of Donald Trump, and they have done almost nothing, according to an official military spokesperson. The one thing they accomplished, they detained one person who turned out to be Marcos Leao, L-E-A-O, a U.S. Army combat engineer who was not involved in the protests, but was actually just late to his appointment at the VA building. Trump spent $134 million on a marine and pony show to push the boundaries of executive power, a desperate projection of strength from a man beset by weakness. So that's what he's accomplished. All the shit that they showed on the TV, okay, all the chaos and the riots and the getting the governor's fur up, you know, and the mayor, all that shit that went on up to now, they've only one person, and it was the wrong person. So we have to look back and say, okay, what the fuck was this all about then? If they've been going up and down the fucking streets in Paramount County, wherever the hell they are, and okay, what the hell was it for? Okay, why did they spend $134 million fucking dollars doing this? The optics. It was all about the optics, to scare the bejesus out of the American public, to say, this is what happens if you try to resist. We will send the military in after you. We will turn your state against you. Your governor cannot stop us. Don't you see? That's what it was really all about. Okay? It had nothing to do about rounding up people. Sure, they showed a lot of people getting pinched, right? Fact is, they all got sent back. You know, and they didn't do anything with these folks because they had no grounds. But the thing of it is that it was the optics, seeing the military, boots on the ground, people walking around with guns, okay? It got a lot of people's ire up, I'll tell you. A lot of people were pissed as hell when they saw that shit happening on their streets. Can't blame them. You know, nobody wants that. The military is supposed to be our friend. We put our faith in them protecting us. We don't want them turning their guns around on us. We already have a police for the civilian sector. That's their job. You know. But the military is supposed to be there to protect all of us as a whole, not just a small fraction of us, but as the country. So this is, it's not surprising. But you would think that what was going on over there, they were rounding up hundreds of people, right? That's what you would think just by watching what the news was broadcasting. No, they made that whole thing up to now. That's all that they've gotten out of that. Okay, so let that sink in. Okay, then here's this other part. Israel Defense Minister says Iran's supreme leader, quote, can no longer be allowed to exist, unquote. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, I guess that's how you say it, quote, can no longer be allowed to exist, unquote, says Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz, his first name is Israel, right? Well, said on Thursday, after an Iranian missile hit a hospital in a town near Tel Aviv, injuring dozens. Quote, the cowardly Iranian dictator sits in the depths of a fortified bunker and fires missiles at hospitals and residential buildings in Israel. These are war crimes of the most serious kind, and Khamenei will be held accountable for his crimes, unquote. Mr. Katz said in a post on Twitter indicating Israel Defense Forces will do everything they can to eliminate the Iranian leader. On a related note, since the beginning of the Israel-Hamas war on October 7th, 2023, Israel forces have launched dozens of deadly attacks on hospitals and medical facilities in Gaza, killing at least 374 medical personnel and destroying 120 ambulances. Quote, no hospital in Gaza is fully functioning. Only 17 of 36 hospitals are partially functioning, and the remaining 19 are out of service. So perspective is everything here, okay? And that quote comes from Wikipedia. So yes, they're sitting here, oh my God, they destroyed one of our hospitals. That's like war crime. Interesting. Very interesting. But it was okay for them to destroy hospitals, multiple hospitals in Gaza when Israel was trying to create genocide in Gaza, basically. Where, to this day, I mean, even now, I mean, that much of that is all rubble now, okay? And there's a humanitarian crisis there, and you don't hear anybody saying anything about helping them, it's sad. So with this war going on here between Israel and Iran, it's hard to pick a side, isn't it? Who's the good guy in this? Can you answer me on that? I mean, I didn't like Iran to begin with, and I still don't. The only thing I can say is that Israel poked the lion one too many times, and now they're getting bit. But Israel had this coming to them, for what they've been doing up to now. Okay, what goes around comes around, So now that a bigger lion is biting their ass, now they're screaming foul, and they don't want the press anywhere near the area taking pictures because they're trying to hide what's happening to Israel from the world because they don't want to look like they're being defeated. And they're putting a lot of pressure on the Trump administration to get involved in this thing, So you see what happens? Biden tried to offer them a way out of this before it got to this point, but nobody, well, especially Netanyahu, nobody was really serious or really was interested in having that. They didn't want no fucking peace. They wanted war. Okay? They've always wanted war with Iran. But Iran is not a little tiny country. It's not a little Iraq, Saddam Hussein thing. No. Iran is a fully developed country. And they got everything we got. Okay? They got all the gadgets, they got everything, okay? So they're not this little tin pot country here like Iraq was. So Israel's going to find that out the hard way. And I hope, I know it, like I said, I know what's going to happen, but I still can hope that the United States will not make that same mistake and jump into this thing. Instead, we'll try to get this war to stop. Is really the best thing to do is try to stop it. The last thing you want is to spread this You know, it's like a grease fire. You don't want to dump water on it, okay, because you know what's going to happen. This is ridiculous. This should not be happening. This war shouldn't be happening. Okay, there was an avenue here to take that could have stopped it, where we wouldn't be here today like this. But like I said, we have the wrong leader for the wrong time, and we were given the golden door, as one would say, to open, that would have taken us down a whole different path where our country would not be where it is today. Okay, we'd still have all kinds of things, you know, that need to be fixed, but at the same time, people would still be at work. Those people that are out of work now would not be out of work. A lot of truckers would still be trucking today. The ports would not be empty. We'd be getting ships of all kinds of goodies here for people to buy from China and all that stuff, okay? We'd have real politicians, real ambassadors of peace here to be able to stave off wars. They could have done something for Israel, which Netanyahu wouldn't have wanted, because he turned his back on Biden. He comes to talk to the Senate here, and he totally ignores Biden, because Biden was not going to stand with him on what Netanyahu was all about. And Kamala would have done the same. She would not have given him the fucking time of day, you know. So Netanyahu would probably be facing the music for his crimes instead of waging a war against a country that he cannot beat without our help. So, like I said, I hope people keep this comparison in mind, especially those of you in MAGA out there, okay? You guys most of all need to remember that if you weren't so hell-bent on trying to own the libs, it wouldn't be costing you what it's costing all of us, okay? We're all going to pay for your fucking mistake, because you people blindly ran headlong into a nut, okay? A guy who really was only in it for his own personal ego. He didn't care about you, okay? He did not care one bit about any of you folks out there. A lot of you people ended up getting deported that voted for him. You know? Can't make that point hit harder than that, right? Jesus. All right, so that's it for today. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So subscribe, comment, share, and keep your ears open for health-related issues. And be kind to your neighbors, help them out, and you know, try to build a system of dependability in your own community where you can help each other when times get worse, and they probably will. So wish I could end this on a happier note, but it is what it is. So I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.